sorry. Just pause my pod.
Hello, my name is Tom, and this is a little series about a low carbon lifestyle.
Okay, I've been going with this low carbon lifestyle thing for a little while now. I'm on something like episode 15 or something crazy. Maybe you started this same journey. You're thinking about emissions and how you might reduce them. If you're anything like me, you probably spend a lot of time each week listening to podcasts. Since 2014 and my friend Ant recommending a little podcast called Serial, my alone time has been accompanied by podcasts from everything from Adam Buxton to This American Life, adverts for Squarespace and their drag and drop tools. If you're a pod addict, you will understand that. So surely there are some good podcasts about climate change, climate activism, and low carbon lifestyles. Well, there are. In the next few minutes, I'm going to recommend my top 8. Okay, in at 1, the godparents of carbon podcasting. Outrage and optimism from Christiana Figueres of Paris Agreement fame, from Tom Rubik-Carnac and Paul Dickinson. So the guest list on this podcast is extraordinary. It's amazing. You've got interviews with David Attenborough, Prince William, Ellie Goulding, Greta Thunberg, Richard Curtis, John Kerry, Stella McCartney, Joseph Stiglitz, Yuval Harari. You've got think pieces on energy, on shopping, on urban transport. And these conversations can often feel really lofty, but they're often really interesting and really important. With COP26 negotiations coming up, I suspect this podcast might be a really important voice to listen to. In at number 2, from the podcast giant Mammoth, Gimlet Media, home of podcast classics like Reply All and Homecoming, we've got How to Save a Planet. In this podcast, they go through the thinking on tree planting. They talk through the reality of how bad things actually are. Maybe wind turbines and the questions of nuclear power. And sometimes they go on to some really interesting carbon reduction projects. This podcast does come with a fairly big health warning, just in terms of how it's as if nothing outside the USA has ever really happened. But if you ignore the American bias, the stories that they tell and the perspective they bring is really helpful and really accessible. In at 3, Local Zero, a pathway to COP26. This is one that I'm actually fairly new to. I'm finding it really helpful framing as we count down towards COP26 in Glasgow at the end of the year. So there are 2 Glasgow-based researchers, Dr. Rebecca Ford and Dr. Matt Hannon, and they have a conversation around smart, local energy and a zero carbon future. It's compelling, it's interesting, it's broad, and it's helpful. And a lot of the time they talk in a manner that is really, really accessible too. I really recommend it. So podcasts can be fantastic ways to explain complex ideas, to discuss and provoke change. But sometimes as well, they can tell extraordinary stories. So in at 4, this podcast from 2018 is called Unburnable, the People versus Arctic Oil. And it talks through a court case to stand against drilling for oil in the Arctic. It's exciting, it's detailed, it's important, it's scary and inspiring. And I won't spoil the ending. Do check it out. Number 5, back down to earth with a podcast called What on Earth. Unbelievably, I was asked to be on this podcast at the start of the series to talk about the question, what on earth is carbon? After the episode I was on with Annie and Natalie, they interviewed some amazing people, some extraordinary guests, that it was a privilege for me to be alongside. So this isn't a recommendation to listen to the podcast episode I was on, but more listen to the rest. Conversations around plastic waste, sustainable fashion, social enterprise, food waste, and sustainable leadership. I really like Annie and Natalie's style, and their phone book is pretty extraordinary. Give it a listen as they ask the question, what on earth? One of the reasons I started recording these videos on YouTube was to try and get people to think about climate activism that wouldn't normally do so. To try and explain a bit of what living a low carbon life might look like. And to talk through the solar panels, the heat pumps, the electric vehicles and all the complexity that might come with each one. At a similar time, my friend Sian started a podcast with her friend Simon called Green Pretenders. And this is number 6 for me. So Green Pretenders is Sian and Simon talking through all they find as they try to live a life sustainably. I think they do what I was trying to do, but a bit better. introducing sustainable lives simply and clearly. Give it a listen. In at 7 is Dale Vince's Decarbonista. I've got a lot of admiration for the green entrepreneur, founder of Ecotricity, owner of Forest Green Rovers Football Club, and all-round good bloke, Dale Vince. He's different. He's not afraid to ruffle feathers, to speak bluntly, and without Mr. Vince, the UK would look a lot less green. I like his vision, I like his vibe, and I like the fruit of his work. This podcast is a 20-minute platform for him to share his views on basically anything, alongside a host with the best radio voice that you've ever heard. I like it. It's current affairs with a hint of green anarchy. Check it out. And number 8, my last tip. Can you have a list of podcasts without mentioning one for the BBC? I don't think so. The output from our beloved broadcaster is extraordinary. Podcasts on anything and everything through BBC Sounds. This one is from Radio 4, and it's a show called Costing the Earth, which is a detailed, climate-focused journalism that does a great job in telling stories around the green agenda from an interesting and helpful perspective, and with the quality of a BBC production. It's fantastic. Okay, they're my 8 podcasts on climate change that I'm listening to. What have I missed? Are there any that you would recommend? Do comment below and share this video with people that you know enjoy podcasts.